in one of my offices, a fire ensued. How fast did I get up and running?
If this was a private practice, I would probably say at least a month and a half at minimum,
Right.
just to get through the claims. And
Right. Took me 24 hours. I was up and running the next day.
Welcome to Untitled Success, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with local business owners. With me today is Dr. Marcos Magar. He is a DDS. He owns his own practice. He has a few practices, so we're going to dive into it today and kind of get into it. So thank you for being with me.
Love to be here, Timmy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. So my number one question I always ask people, and it's for them to figure out what kind of person you are, right? And so who were you in high school?
Not the guy you see in front of you. The guy in high school would be shocked to see the person I am now.
Why do you say that?
In high school, I was a recluse. In high school, I didn't have enough confidence in anything. And the only thing I was able to lean on were my studies, my books, my grades. And then as I advanced into college and built the confidence, took better care of myself, things started kind of falling into place. So as my confidence grew, it encouraged my people skills, and therefore it got me to where I am today.
Interesting. So you were more of like an introvert.
I'm still an introvert.
Oh,
believe it or not.
but forced to be in front of people at this point.
Yes, this is now more of a choice than it was a necessity. Back then, I was kind of protecting myself.
Okay. Did you always knew that you wanted to be a dentist?
So being a dentist kind of falls along with my personality.
Okay.
I am very OCD, and being a dentist is a very great way to kind of hone in on that. I call it a flaw.
Okay.
But it's a great way because the more specific you are about certain procedures, the better quality procedures that come out of it.
Okay, so then you went to college, and at that point, did you know that you wanted to be a dentist?
So when I got into college, I knew I was going to go into dentistry. It wasn't a question of, am I going down the medical school route or any, I was like, I'm going in to be a dentist.
Okay. So you finished that practice, right? Or you finished that schooling.
I finished undergrad, correct.
And then you went to?
I went to USC.
USC?
School of Dentistry, correct.
And finished that. And then from what I understood from like other people is that your family practices dentistry.
So correct. My parents are both dentists.
Okay.
But they were kind of like figure out what it is outside of us.
Okay.
So I really respect my parents that didn't give me the practice. They were more like, you can see what we do.
Okay.
You can work with us for a little bit, but you need to figure out your stuff on your own.
Gotcha.
So I think that was huge on kind of getting me to the place I am today. Because if they would have just silver spoon feeding me what they had, I wouldn't be at where I am currently.
Because that's what I wanted to know. I felt like you have a path and you have a road. Be a dentistry, take over the practice, learn the business, move forward. How many practices does your parents have? Just one? Or
Just had one.
They have the one practice, maybe open the second practice.
Possibly.
Right? And be done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's not your story.
No, not in any way, shape, or
Not
form.
any way, shape, or form. So you finished school, and then did you open up your own practice after that?
So after school, like I said, my parents were like, listen, you can work with us a day or 2 a week just to kind of float you by. And I went and just learned from so many different practices all through SoCal.
Okay.
I went as far east as Beverly Hills. I went as far southeast as San Bernardino and everything kind of in between. And I went to go learn from different dentists of different caliber. People that did bread and butter dentistry, people that did cosmetic dentistry, people that focus on surgeries, people that focus on what's called multi-specialty dentistry. And then it got me questioning the business side of it. So why is all these different people that technically do the same thing are producing a different type of income? And so it kind of made me wonder, how are they doing it differently than others? And what path did they get on? So it was kind of like how you're so inquisitive about what I was doing. I too was inquisitive of, how did you get to that spot? And then I found those people. Some of them became my mentors. Some of them were just like, I'm giving you a paycheck. That's all you need to worry about. Versus like, I would be the type of guy that I'm very big on my clinical quality. That's huge. Some people aren't. And that affects, bad dentists. So I was like, I don't want to work for someone who I know isn't going to help me be better at my craft.
As you go through these different dentist office, what did you inquire from all of this?
I'm the type of person that sits back and assesses. I want to absorb and see. And then once I understand, I go ahead and I start asking questions.
Okay.
And it's how they respond to my questions that makes me determine, am I going to stick around or not?
Gotcha. So after you've gone through all of these places to, observe and pretty much analyze, at that point, did you decide, hey, I want to open up my own practice?
So it kind of fell in my lap.
Okay.
So I'm part of what's called a DSO, a dental service organization.
Right. So my first question before you get into it,
Sure.
can we, for those who are not familiar
Sure.
with DSO,
Sure.
Can we take a second to explain what?
Absolutely. So some people have heard of medical service organizations. It's kind of the same concept, but in the dental form.
Okay.
So what they do, it's a group that I partner with, and they take care of my business side of things. I'm saying that in quotations. So they help me with admin, they help me with operations, they help me with hiring, they help me with IT, marketing, hiring, firing. Well, I do the firing. But they help me kind of the business side of things.
Okay.
That caught my interest because it allowed me to focus on my dentistry.
Okay.
So when I was analyzing all these former employers that I had, I was questioning how they did things. And I'm like, okay, there's a chunk of the business I don't have to worry about. And I can actually hone my craft as a dentist. And that's when I kind of refined all my clinical skills. So being part of a DSO it's basically having a partner that allows you to grow as a clinician, but also they taught me a lot about the business side too.
Why would someone, if someone's looking at this and saying, hey, I could start my own private practice, or I can go with a DSO, what are the advantages or disadvantages from having one versus the other?
There's a couple. The advantages thus far is with the DSO, there's something called buying power. So you have access to better technology, better materials at a much cheaper rate. On the flip of it, you're going to give up a portion of your profits. And that's something someone has to answer to themselves. Are they willing to do that? I am. I'm willing to.
So you're saying you weighed both of them. You're saying the benefits for them providing the technology, providing all of the service for a chunk of the business outweighs than me just trying to do this all by myself.
Correct.
Okay.
Because, case in point, in one of my offices, a fire ensued. Fire. Took out 2/3 of my office. Yeah, it was bad.
This is the Huntington Beach office?
My Huntington Beach office.
Your main office.
This is my main office. How fast did I get up and running?
If this was a private practice, I would probably say at least a month and a half at minimum, just to get through the claims. And
Right. Took me 24 hours. I was up and running the next day.
How?
They have a team. They have a maintenance team that came in, fixed the problem, cleaned up, worked overnight so I can see patients the next day. That's priceless to me.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, let's just talk fiscally alone, the amount of money you would lose in that time frame, the fact that you may lose your employees because you don't have a job for them to work, is huge.
Yeah.
The next day we were up and running.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew I'm going to stick around with these guys.
Because of how quick they were.
24 hours. It was even less. The fire happened at 11 a.m. We saw patients the next day at 8.
24 hours is crazy.
It's nuts.
It's unheard of.
And I just had, my manager made one phone call. The rest was taken care of.
So are there different types of DSOs?
There are.
So
There are multiples.
obviously, funny story for people that don't know. I'm still friends with this neighbor of mine, and he has a kid, right?
Sure.
And he's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah. So we've built a rapport for over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I see him on a Saturday night, and he's like, "Hey, I'm out here. Our boss took us out."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, like we do admin work for." Played it down. Admin work for a dentist office.
Yeah.
Then you show up, and he's like, "Oh, like this is my boss," and I'm like,
What?
"What a small world."
Yeah.
I'll leave out the other details. Right.
You should.
For the sake of this podcast, I'll leave out the other details. But I'm like, oh, so then I was like, hey, the next day or a week after, I'm like, hey, what do you do? And he was explaining the DSO.
Yeah.
So the DSO, from my understanding, is, a lack of better words, is like Subway, for example. Like you can buy into Subway, you have your operations, but you have your basically franchise fee. Is that a fair assessment?
I see your analogy, but it's not very franchisey.
Okay.
I see what you, because like a lot of franchises, they offer like, exactly what I said, but I'm not, if you go into my practice, it's my practice.
Yeah.
I'm not sponsoring anybody else's brand. It's my brand.
Gotcha. Okay.
So every office that I have has its own brand. So you'll never walk in and assume, oh, this is part of the DSO. You'll assume like this is Dr. Magar's office.
Gotcha.
So everyone has its own unique style, unique way of doing it, but we have the same support systems.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So this DSO, did you start with them from the beginning? Like the very beginning?
I did not. I actually started, I was hired as an associate in my Huntington Beach practice.
Okay.
And I started as an associate, and a lot of things were changing. A lot of things were just moving in a different way. And I was actually told them, like, listen, guys, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I think I'm ready to start my own place. And by saying that, they were like, well, we wanted to talk to you about being a partner in this office. And that's how it all started. They actually offered me a partnership 2 weeks before I got married.
It's not a bad gig before.
So I was asking my wife, hey, do you really want to get married or do you want to wait?
Yeah.
And she was like, do you want to live or do you want to die? So obviously I'm still alive. So I made the best decision of my life.
So now is that practice fully yours or still partnership?
Still partnership.
Still partnership. But then you decided to start different dentist offices.
So through the DSO, I'm opening more offices with them.
Okay. So is the DSO in the Huntington Beach one as well?
Correct.
Okay. So you're partners with this person. At some point, you find this DSO. And you contact them and talk to them. Can you walk me through how that process happened?
So my Huntington Beach office was already owned by the DSO.
Oh, gotcha.
And I wasn't even, at the time, I knew of it, but I didn't understand the extent of it. Then they went ahead and offered me a partnership in that office. So I got my maximum shares in that practice. They see how well I perform. They see, how the proper care I give the patients, the profitability. They're like, we need you to replicate what you're doing. And that's when I start getting other offices. So they're like, listen, we're going to open a practice in Stanton. We're going to open an office in Cypress. We're going to open another office in Huntington. We want you to have your hand in it in order to groom it the way you just groomed the Huntington Beach office.
And now are all of these offices currently, those are your offices? No partnerships?
There are partnerships within the DSO, and there's usually like another partner attached to it.
Oh, okay. So if I'm a dentist, for example, and you're a dentist, the DSO will partner us together and we'll go into the office?
Sure. Like let's say you worked for me in one of my practices, and you came to me like listen, I wanna be part of this DSO. How can I be a part of it? We two go partner. I will go help you. We'll find a place, set you up. You run the show, and I'm in the background coaching you on how to groom it to where I have my offices groomed.
Now, this is more of a personal question for me. Partnerships always scare the living crap out of me. How did you maneuver through these partnerships?
So, funny question. I was really anti-partnerships.
Well, you should be. Number one, most Middle Easterns are all against partnerships.
Right. But if you start talking to people that are, I call them the uber successful people.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs. You ask them, how many businesses are you part of? They'll give you a big number. How many of them are 100% yours? It's usually 0. I thought that was really interesting. And then I started reading more about certain people. I started listening to certain podcasts. Started understanding the idea of partnerships. It's kind of like diversifying a financial portfolio. The hardest thing about any business, as far as I'm concerned, are people. You have to be able to assess people correctly. You have to understand and be willing to basically predict the future. Is this someone you can work with? Sometimes it can blow up your face. Sometimes it can be very fruitful. And so far, knock on wood, I've been okay.
How do you determine that? Like, for example, if you looked at me, you're like, okay, I want to partner with you, or no, I don't want to partner with you. How do you assess that?
There's a lot. That's a hard question to sum up in like a few minutes. Let's put it this way. I have associates that I've helped open their own practices that I've been very happy with. There's ones that ask me, I want to open a practice with you. I've said no. I kind of have to do the whole idea of lead by example. It's one thing to walk the walk, you have to talk the talk. I would flip that. Talk the talk versus walk the walk. If they're talking a lot but not walking, I'm not in. Being a business owner of any capacity is you have to have that certain mentality. And I think as long as I've been doing this, I can call that out pretty easily.
Okay.
Because people want a lot, but not many people are willing to work for it.
Yeah, and it's also the fear of partnering.
Yeah.
Because it's people say it's like a marriage. It truly is like a marriage.
It is a marriage, absolutely.
Like if I don't have your best interest and you don't have my best interest, then it's going to fall apart.
So the beauty about this specific DSO, they cannot be successful without me. I have to be successful for them to be successful. If I fail, they fail. And that's why this works.
But also on the other side of that, that partnership that you have with someone else has to be successful as well.
But then that's where you have to roll the dice. Nothing in business is guaranteed. Nothing.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn that.
Nothing is guaranteed. You have to take, I call it a calculated risk. If it makes sense for you, then do it.
What's the one thing that no one warns you about when starting your business?
People. No one warns you about dealing with people. And I'm not talking about patients. I'm talking about my teams, my employees. Is understanding their nuances, their strengths. How can you grow them? If conflict arises, how do you deal with them? Because you can't just duke it out. There's certain ways of applying things. There's certain ways of engaging with things. I'm significantly older than you. So I had to learn how to engage properly with people in different age categories. So I have to learn how to properly engage with someone accordingly.
Okay.
And I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to do that.
Someone will say, like if I'm in your position and you're saying people, it's very simple. I'm the dentist. I'm the boss. I have a caliber of where we want to be. I need you guys to follow suit. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed over the years is that's a wrong approach to some degree. And I'm also looking at these people that are leaders, right? Like even someone that I work with, I pay attention to that person. And I'm trying to figure out why people are willing to follow him. Do you have a recipe?
Like you, I try to learn from others. One thing that I stopped doing is, yes, I'm the boss. I'll never use that title on anybody. I just come in with a presence because everyone knows what my mission is from all my practices. Mm-hmm. Do right by the patients and everything will fall into place. I have something called a clinical culture that is written on a 6-page document that it has all my staff has access to. Has an explanation of why I'm here, what's everyone's role, and what's everyone's expectations, including mine.
How did you put that together?
That took years. That took years to put together. Because I don't want any person that A, that works for me, or B, that I'm considering to hire, not know what's happening in that office. It's literally tit for tat, everything that goes on, what expectations are. And when I also do what I say, no one can question me. I can be wrong. I can be at fault, but I own it, and I fix it and I move on. I have to lead by example. I'm not a boss. I try to be the best leader I can be because people want to follow a leader. They don't want to follow a boss. I'm not a dictator. I want to guide them to go and do what they need to do.
Could you give me advice on how that works? Like, if I'm going to buy a business tomorrow and I have people underneath me and they don't know who I am and they don't know how I operate, what's the best approach to go through that?
The first thing I want to know is how is the business being ran? What profitability is currently standing, if there's any profitability at all? Where you want to take the business to? And then you devise a game plan. Whether it's a timeline, whether it's this is how I want the business to be ran, and this is what we're gonna do to modify it. And you get your team's buy-in. And I hate to say it, those that don't agree with you, they shouldn't stick around. Because one thing I tell all my employees, I will never force you to be here. You know where the door is? I just ask you give me heads up as a courtesy. And I'll tell you right now, no one has yet to walk out the door.
Because they want to work for you.
They know what I'm trying to achieve. It's not fiscal. It's really not. It's about we are healthcare providers. We need to provide the best healthcare we can. Period. Everything else, the monies, the bonuses, they'll come. Let's do right by people first. Because we live in a world now where we need a pat on the back. We live in a world where we need to feel comfortable. Because if you really think about what we do as dentists, people are giving us money to go in a very intimate part of their body that people are usually embarrassed about. They're terrified that we're going to hurt them or even judge them. That's not the environment we have in my practices.
On a side note, how do you help them feel comfortable, like these patients?
So one thing I do that not many dentists perform, if I see a new patient, I go into the lobby and I greet them myself. I introduce myself. I say, let's come on back and let's have a chat. I don't talk about anything dental related. I just want to get to know the person. Let's say you came to me, you don't know who I am. Come in, hey Timmy, Dr. Magar, nice to meet you, thanks for coming in. Come on back. And then I just start a conversation. Timmy, originally from Orange County. And we just kind of go back and forth. I try to find a commonality with you because you're not just a mouth, you're a person.
Because that seems like it's time consuming for you.
It is time consuming, but it's valuable. I'm letting you know I care for you as a person before I worry about your mouth. But it also gives you the opportunity to share with me your experiences, your concerns, your objections before even looking in your mouth. That way we already established an understanding before even we take x-rays.
Has there been a patient where their reaction has changed your outlook of dentistry, like a positive?
There's a lot of things that's happened in my career. A lot funny, a lot sad, a lot
Can you share the funniest and the saddest, if you can?
So this one's kind of funny and sad. This one stuck out pretty well because this was very early in my career. New patient comes in and she's yelling at the front, I need you to re-cement my crown. Okay, crown's just a little cap you put over your tooth if something was wrong underneath it. Never seen the patient, didn't worry much about it. They're telling me, can you calm this patient down? Like, we don't know what's going on. So I go and I look in there and I see this massive crown. And I'm trying to figure out how to fit it. I'm like, ma'am, this isn't working. This isn't fitting. She's like, and she's really getting pissed off. Like, you better know what you're doing because if I swallow this thing, I'm going to sue you. Like, she's already throwing out. I was like, lady, like, I don't know what to tell you. This doesn't fit. And she's like, give me that crown. And she just tried to shove it back in. And all she keeps saying is like, Devin, like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, who's Devin? She's like, that's my dead husband's. This is his crown. I didn't want to pay for a new crown, so I got this crown to put it back on. And then she just lost it. Started crying. So I'm just looking at her like, what? That's your dead husband? I'm trying to process. And I'm not understanding this fully. Because this woman went to the corner, got his crown to put it back in her own mouth because she couldn't afford one. That's what it ultimately came down to. So when I started,
Wow.
So I had the woman have it, like, I tried to comfort her, like, it's okay, when did he pass? And like, I don't remember the time frame. And she's like, I just can't afford a new crown. Mm-hmm. So I was like, look, let me figure something out. It was a gold crown. And at the time, gold was really high. I said, listen, why don't you give me the crown? I'll cash it out for you and I'll make you a new gold crown with that one. I won't charge you for my labor. This was in 2008.
Oh.
I now see her sister, her son, his kids, his wife's side of the family because of that one incident I did for her.
Wow.
I could have been like, get out, you crazy woman.
Because
honestly, I was not. I was literally like, in my mind, I'm like, this is a joke. Someone's screwing with me. This can't be real.
Yeah.
But I see things of that caliber. So it was funny and sad all at once. So within 10 minutes, this woman was pissed. She was mortified. Yeah. She was sad. Yeah. And then she was like absolutely thankful because she was like, you would do that? I'm like, you're in a bad place. Let me help you.
And it became fruitful actually for you.
Inadvertently. I didn't want anything in return.
Yeah.
But it was just more, it just happened to turn that way. And she's my biggest like advocate.
Was there ever a moment where you almost didn't become a dentist?
There was. In college, I had an accident with my hand that severed the nerve of my left thumb. And I wasn't able to use it. This was in the middle of applications.
Oh.
But I rehabbed it, and obviously I'm working. And I really thought I'd have to pivot.
Really?
Yeah.
Sidebar, if you had to pivot, is there any other professions you would have gone into?
One of my closest friends was bugging me to join him in the finance world because I'm good with numbers. He was harassing me because as he was going through the finance world, I was going through the dental side of things, and we're taking tests together. He's like, you could be right here with me. We can be. I was like, I'm fine.
How do you shut that out? Like,
What do you mean?
how do you shut out? Because he's in your head about being in finance. There's probably a portion of you that said,
What if?
I could probably just do this.
Yeah, easily.
So how do you shut out like these people when they're talking? Is he the only person that was like in your ear about it?
He was the only one. Everyone knows, like, when I focus on something, I don't deter.
That's it.
It's a mentality.
Okay.
It's definitely a mentality.
So even though he was your friend and kind of just in your ear,
He was just he was like, just come on. I was like, no, I don't want to.
yeah.
Could I have done it? Of course.
Oh, 100%.
Could I wanted to? Maybe there's times I would have.
Okay.
But God got me down this path, and I can't be happier.
Okay.
I couldn't be happier.
So you're walking through this path. You became an associate. You became a partner. You opened up other businesses. One of the things that I always try to figure out is what's your first calculated risk? Like, for example, I'm currently in the midst of thinking about buying a business. And there's so many things that are going through my head. And there's so many times where I'm like, there's some nights I can't sleep. Because for me, at this time, you're probably married, not with a kid yet, with some of your practice.
First practice, no kids yet.
No kids yet. But you're, in your head, you're probably like, I'm putting my wife in danger to some degree because I'm going to start this business. I don't know the risk about it. So what would you tell that person who's like, okay, I know that you want to you're calculating this risk. I know you don't know anything about it or much about it. How did you make that first business move?
First of all, my wife was very imperial in terms of supporting me, in terms of making sure whatever decision I made, that, for lack of a better term, she has my back.
Okay.
That was huge. That level of support alone, like, I could not be where I am without her.
But
Because, and I'll tell you why. When you have that level of support, you can think clear. When you're worried about a lot, you may not make the right decision. There are pros and cons to everything you do. It's the matter of how can you stay objective. And the level of risk you're willing to take. When my wife was like, do what we need to do, God will take care of us, but I trust you, that should be enough. That alone allowed my mental to be so focused and to make objective moves to get to where I needed to be. So that's a bit, because don't get me wrong, I still have nights where I don't sleep.
Yeah.
There's, like, as much as I joke about firing, the night before, I'm not sleeping because I'm going to change someone's life for the worse. Maybe I'm doing them a favor. I don't know. But I take it personally that I'm messing with somebody's income.
Yeah.
I take that to heart. But when it comes to business analysis and understanding it, there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration. A lot of things you got to take into consideration. If you look at just the brass tacks between just a simple profit and loss statements and understanding where you are production-wise, where you are collections-wise, where you are people-wise, where your CAM costs, where your occupancy costs, what's your net operating income. There's so many factors to come into play. Numbers can tell you one thing, but being in and out of a business tells you another.
But let's take this example for a second, right?
Okay.
So let's say, hypothetically, the Cypress office, right? You found this office and you're like, hey, they're operating, they're not operating efficiently.
Right.
Right. And they are at a loss, or they're making money, but their P&Ls don't make sense. But you see it in an area, right, where it's a good opportunity. How do you analyze that based on, because there's a few things in this world that I can kind of guarantee. A dentist office, you can find one almost at every corner.
Right.
A liquor store, a pharmacy. Right?
Yeah.
But yet people still go out of their way to start their own dentistry, own liquor store, even though it's saturated.
Right.
Right? So if you look at this office in Cyprus and you say, hey, you're not operating efficiently, and if I took this over, I can do it better. I don't know how, but I can do it better. And you have your wife's back, but there's still that like unknown, which is you buying the practice.
Right.
How do you go through that process? How do you, like, if I'm you, what are you thinking of when you're looking at that?
I look at, so I'm going to focus on the dental side because that's all I know versus like any random business. I look at a lot of things. I look at patient flow. I look at, I hate to say it, and I don't like using it because it shouldn't be for any medical or health professional, but I look at online reviews, see what the previous owner is and what he's done. I look at a lot of claims. I look at a lot of the fiscal side of things because it determines what they're doing on the positive side in terms of how much are they truly producing. I really spend days breaking down probably the last 18 months of the business.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, I then go and look at the people in the past 18 months. Who's been there the longest? Who hasn't? Who on those online reviews, who's been mentioned in a positive light? Who hasn't? And number three, I like to see their day-to-day operations. I want to see how are we interacting with people? How is the team interacting with each other? How is everyone communicating amongst each other? Because communication is huge in any practice. Those are probably the top three things that I look at before I say, I know how to make this better, or this is going to take too much time for me to get a better ROI. And I've been in the business long enough to know that. I can make that call, and I've turned down offers.
What do you think is the biggest mistake most people make when they start their own dentist
practice?
office? Yeah, own practice.
They get too excited on building it out versus building it up.
Can you elaborate?
Dentists love toys. They love the nice stuff. They like things to look pretty.
Okay.
They like, look how pretty my operatory looks. Look how pretty my lobby is. Look at this special computer I got. So they like to build out versus building it up.
Okay.
As opposed to finding, I'm not saying to be cheap, but find the things that's going to make you a better dentist. Find the equipment and the instruments that's going to make your procedures that much easier. Not the fancy ones. Find the ones that's going to make you be better. Then you can build it up.
Gotcha. So like a tool, for example, that will help save you 30 minutes of time versus the screen that shows,
The latest TikTok.
Latest like X-ray,
Right.
and it's 3D model, and you're like, these people don't really care about that. Like it's what you want, not what you need.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So at what point did you have several practices and children?
I'll be honest, I've chronologically lost when I had my kids versus when the practices came. It's been that, it's all jumbled. It's all been jumbled. I can't.
If you don't mind me asking, how many total practices do you currently have?
4.
4 total practices.
Correct.
And how many kids?
3.
3 kids.
3 kids.
I asked this, I don't know if you know Bullis Michael.
I do.
Okay. So I asked him this, in your position, doing the work that you're doing, having the kids that you have, and still trying to make time for your wife, how do you not have your marriage just fall apart?
A strong wife helps a lot because, again, she has my back and I have hers. She's doing what is necessary to kind of keep the house and the kids afloat. She's the one doing all the work. I just show up. But at the same time, I have this whole mentality that, like, it's not, she does all the work. I mean, she does everything. God bless her. But it's being present. Doing work and being present are 2 different things. And I try on the daily to be present. So even though my time is limited, I try to be present. So for my kids, even coming to the podcast, I was telling them, like, oh, Dad's going to be on a podcast and all this stuff. So they're like, what are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about me? Like, just but getting them just excited about the simple things. And then like, wait, Dad, is he going to be? And then like, oh, this is going to be on YouTube? I'm like, yeah, I believe it's going to be. It's like, I can't wait to see it. Like,
Yeah.
Just getting them engaged on so many different levels is what I try to do. But it's a constant engagement. But like, God knows I do my best to show up to their games. I try to be present for every little thing. And they know when I work, I have to work. But when I'm home, I try not to bring work home, which is tough for any dentist.
Yeah.
But when I'm home, I try to be my best to be available.
I'm assuming some of these practices that you opened, you had children at the time. Most of the time when you open up a practice, there's, for lack of better words, dark times, which means getting it up and running, building that, basically that creed that you have for each of the dental offices. Do you ever tell your kids like, hey, I need to be away for X amount of time?
They know if I'm at work, it's because I have to be.
Okay.
They understand that. They know, like, when Dad's at work, Dad has to be there. It's not that he wants to be there, he has to be there. And he's helping people. They know I'm not...
But we're talking about kids. They might not totally understand that.
True, they don't, to a degree. My oldest one gets it. My middle one's like, okay, Dad comes when Dad comes. It's my youngest who's just like, are you working today or not? She's the one that's like, what are you doing?
Okay.
What's today? Are you going to work? Like, it's the youngest one. The middle, my 7-year-old, my 10-year-old, they kind of get it.
Okay.
It's my 3-year-old who's just like, okay, so you're taking me to school tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, in her mind, tomorrow's the future. I'm taking you to school in the future. Don't worry about that. But thank God, the one biggest thing I can say about dentistry is I have a really good work-life balance.
Really?
I do.
That's crazy to say, right? 4 offices, 3 children, and saying work-life balance, that seems very non-existent.
So it's a matter of efficiencies. It's a matter of what I do with my time.
Okay.
It's how I use my time.
How do you use your time? Between all 4 offices, how do you use your time?
As efficient. It's scheduling is key. Scheduling accordingly, knowing what I can do between my downtime and how to use it to my advantage.
Do you visit all 4 offices?
Not every day. No.
Okay.
So I'm usually between 2 of them, 4 days a week.
Okay.
And then on my Fridays, I might jump between 2 of the other ones.
Okay. Part of the question I have for that is human nature. When boss is not there, efficiencies drop.
True. Very true.
How do you keep that efficiency high?
By being available as often as I can.
Okay.
If I could, I'd split myself 4 ways and always be present. But that's not the case.
But you can't.
I cannot. But it's having a team that supports the vision that I established. And they know, like, this is not for Dr. Magar, it's for the patients.
Okay.
By instilling that in my people, I'm not worried.
Okay, so you kind of are leading me to the next question. Through this entire time you've had these practices, what are some non-negotiables that you keep and remain to this day?
Number 1, you have to be on time to work. That's like not even a question.
Okay.
You can't do anything without it. And showing up every day, we have something called morning huddles, where everyone practicing that day reviews their schedule and understands we have A, B, and C going on with this patient. Understand they get a little nervous. Here's some extra TLC we can give them. We go one by one to know what can we do to make their experience that much better.
Okay.
It's called morning huddle. For my clinicians, I do something called 3-day schedule reviews. Every day they work 3 days ahead to balance out their schedules in order to maintain a level of efficiencies.
So take me through that. So if I'm working for you.
So you're working with me Monday through Friday.
Okay.
It's Monday morning. I'm with you that Monday morning.
Okay.
You and I are you're going to look at your schedule Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after the huddle to assess are things jumbled? Are things too crowded? Do I need to spread things out? Do I need more time on this procedure? Balancing out the schedules to, again, create a level of efficiencies.
You have everyone's buy-in for this.
Everyone, because it makes their life easier. What I'm asking of them is to allow their job to work smarter, not harder. That's what I'm asking of them.
But what if someone gave you, not pushback, but like, okay, like...
I picked the wrong person. They don't accept how important it is to be efficient. I messed up. I didn't read them correctly.
And at that point, they've already made they've sealed their fate.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It's, at that point, I'm looking for another associate. If I'm expecting so much from others, they need to expect more from me. And I got to show them that.
Okay.
That's why the idea, someone told me, you're not a boss, you got to be a leader. And as a leader, you work for your people. They don't work for you. So when that was told to me, I was just like, light bulb. Like, I get it. That makes sense.
It's a light bulb, right? Don't get me wrong, but in practice, I think that's the hard part to learn.
Yeah, it's learning patience. It's learning it's like when do you say like, look, this person is not conducive to what I'm trying to do in this practice. I got to get rid of them.
There's also the part where it's like you have 4 offices. Sometimes it might feel like a rat race because it's like, oh, someone called out. Oh, this person called out. Oh, like we have people that are not at the office.
I'm smiling because that actually happened today in the middle of my lecture.
Okay, so okay, perfect.
So
tell me, how the hell did you walk through that in the middle of your lecture?
So I'm giving my lecture, and my watch keeps blowing up. I was like, I can't answer this. Had a break, looked through all the messages, called my manager, told her to breathe. Basically, I was short an assistant. We had a slam schedule. We looked over the schedule together. I said, do A, B, and C, and D. You guys will be fine. Got a text from her at the end of the day. Thanks for calming me down. We were able to manage with one assistant. Very easy. In hindsight, I wish she took on that ownership from the get-go, but she needed me to kind of, it's okay, you'll be fine, let's keep going. But she needed me to say that for her to do what she needed to do.
What would happen if, like, for example, that scenario, a dentist called out and there's no one there? Is there ever a time like that?
Those days happen so far and few in between. But luckily, I have multiple associates in every practice that I'm not worried about that. I've gotten them built out that, God forbid, someone does call out, we do what we can. We adjust schedules, we reschedule. Life happens. And I'm very forgiving on that. If it's happening all too often, then we have to see why. Because things happen, and I get it.
Yeah. If you're standing with yourself before you take on this partnership and open up other businesses, what's this little pep talk that you're going to give yourself before you start this venture of opening up different dentist offices?
I would have told myself, A, stay objective. B, have a plan of action. And when things deter, do not let it stay objective.
Okay.
Because when emotions get involved in your decision making of a business, that's when things go south.
Have you had emotions involved?
Absolutely. I've made bad decisions. I definitely made bad decisions in my business. I've learned from them. I've come out of it, and I want to, and I never will repeat those mistakes.
Can you share one bad decision? If not, that's fine.
No, it's totally fine. I joke about firing, and again, I don't have a hard time firing. I just don't like the act of firing. And I had an associate who, on paper, was really good. He was actually very productive. And I found out he was stealing patients from me for another person. And it took me, and the only reason I found out, because that specific patient came to me and told me. And so when I learned, it was this is again, stay objective, right? Because a part of me wanted to be like, I'm like, him, like that associate, I'm like, we should talk outside.
Yeah.
Part of me was like, but part of me was like, no, you can't do that. You just can't. And so it was a huge blow to the ego because of how much time I've spent like helping this person. And when it came down to it, he was mortified. He was shocked I even found out. And then it didn't get ugly, but it was more like, enough's enough. Like, you need to leave. And he was like, at the time there's paper charting. Why didn't you collect my charts? I'm like, you need to leave now. And I wasn't scared, but I was more concerned like how he would react to anybody else or any of the rest of the staff or anything like that. And it worked out okay. But it was one of those things like, how did you not see this? In retrospect, I was looking back like I ignored so many signs. And because he did what I needed him to do. So now I'm a lot more analytical when I look at any of my people. And
you're only gonna have that way of thinking through experience.
Right.
There's no other way.
People think, so someone's told me a couple things. If you're smart, you learn from your mistakes. If you're wise, learn from other mistakes. I'm just smart. Okay. I learn from my own mistakes to be able to do better. I'm trying to be wise. I want to learn from other people's mistakes so I don't repeat them.
Okay. Flipping the script a little bit. Are dentists in general in trouble in the next 10 years based on technology, AI, all of these?
So it's funny. I read an article the other day that a robot was able to do what's called a crown prep.
Okay.
Literally do what a dentist can do in the mouth.
Okay. For those who don't know what a crown prep, can you just kind of...
Sure. So if you've heard of crown or the term cap, it's basically a cover you put over the entire tooth.
Yeah.
But you have to trim the tooth down in certain dimensions for that to work. A robot can now do that.
Okay, so you just nodded, you just shook your head like we're good, and you just said that.
Right. Because the robot at the same time does not understand the physiology behind every tooth. Every tooth is different. They can do the basics, but not understand the science about what's about to happen to that tooth if done incorrectly. So I laugh because there's going to be some big ways in dental tech, for sure. Like, for instance, you mentioned earlier 3-dimensional imaging. I have that in all my offices. I have AI built into that. It's only made me a better dentist because of it.
Well, there's a difference, right? There's a difference of AI making your job easier, which it will soon be a lot more easier, almost like a synergy between AI.
Absolutely.
But at what point do you see a point in time where it's like, oh, we might not need, for example, hygienists? We can.
That's not going to happen in my career.
Okay.
That will not happen in my career.
Why are you so confident about that?
People's general health has a big impact on their mouths. About specifically hygiene and something called periodontal disease that is not going away anytime soon. There is no machine that can perform the procedures a dental hygienist can perform. We're nowhere near that. There's no product. There's nothing people can do at home to control that. We're nowhere near that level.
Okay.
It's more patients have to be more focused on their overall health to help their oral health.
Okay.
In terms of the procedures that I do, a lot of the surgical stuff, that is not going to be do away with tech anytime soon.
So, obviously, from talking to you outside of this and here, I can tell that you are very much about your craft. I mean, down to the T. Like, there's very few people that I look at and I'm like, oh, this person genuinely enjoys his craft as a passion, not as a job. Is there any kind of technology that you're excited about that's coming out for being a dentist that you're like, oh man, I can't wait to have that?
The biggest thing right now, it's not necessarily tech, it's the idea of, I'm sure you've heard of dental implants. You lose a tooth, you put a titanium screw, you build a crown over that and you're set. The latest thing that's going to happen, and I hope it happens in my career, when instead of going through with the dental implant, you place something called a dental germ.
Okay.
It's like a seed, and your body will regrow that same tooth.
Whoa.
That's insane.
That is insane.
Because that's going to give you vascularity, it's going to give you nerve endings, it's going to give you full function of what that tooth should be like.
That's similar to like stem cells, right?
Correct.
And the way that I don't know.
I'm very broad about it, but it's that's a good analogy.
Wow.
That's going to be insane. If that happens.
Do you think that happens in your lifetime?
You know, I'm not going to stick, if I'm on the verge of retirement, if I retire, I'd be cool to stick around for it, but I hope I witness it in my lifetime.
Okay. So you kind of just said that you're on the verge of retirement.
No, when.
Oh, when. I was like, wait a second, bro. Wait a second.
I have 3 girls. I have nowhere near the verge of retirement.
Yeah. I'm like,
I got a long ways to go.
Okay. But you're hoping before you retire, you get to see that done. So 2 of my favorite questions that I like to ask everyone is, number 1, if someone came to you today and was like, hey, I will give you $5 million for all your practices, don't practice again. Or better yet, like, I'll give you $5 million for your practices, and from here on out until you retire, just come work for me. Don't think about the business. Don't think about anything else. Just come work for me.
Okay.
Are you taking that deal?
No.
Why?
I can do a lot more.
Fine. Offers you $20 million, and you come work for me as a W-2 employee.
Yeah, I think I have a lot more opportunities in the next 25 years of my life to make that. Probably more.
Okay.
Because it's not just about dentistry. It's about how you invest, how you allocate, and all that stuff. I think I'm in a better place.
Do you see yourself opening up more offices? Mm-hmm. Being more of a franchise? Like, what is your...
I see myself helping other dentists grow in their own practices and being a partner with them, and helping them grow accordingly. I see myself doing more teaching, giving more talks. I see myself kind of just growing more people in their careers, whether it's like from a clinician standpoint versus a managerial position where they want to grow and become a bigger manager, or help me manage more of my offices and go from there. I can build people, and when I build people, it helps me profitability-wise.
Well, you kind of touched on this. How do you build people?
I show them, A, that I care about them as a person, B, that I want to know what they want to achieve, and I help them come up with a game plan of how they can achieve it.
Okay. Now, I know you're not full of fluff, but there are a lot of people that are full of fluff, right? So how do you distinguish yourself from, just like any person that you watch on YouTube, there are people that are like, hey, I can make you money if you follow my way.
Right.
right? And then there's people that like, here are my steps, right? Just stay away, avoid all of this fluff and just stick with me, right? So if like I graduated from dentistry and I was working as a dentist somewhere and you saw me and you're like, hey man, do you want to open up your own practice? I would love to. Do you want to partner? Oh, I don't know. Like partnership is how much would you have to give me? Let's say 50% of your business. Oh, okay. Well, am I really about to give up 50%? But what do I get in return? Like what would you tell that person?
So I'm going to kind of squash your example because it's not too conducive.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to, like, why would someone trust me to help me help them?
Okay.
I have a track record. My track record proves itself. The people I've helped grow have become very successful. So when someone asks, why should I team up with you? I tell them, here's a number to this person, who I've helped grow. Contact them and get back to me. You let me know how it feels.
Oh, so you're just like, hey,
You want to do it? Here's what I can do it for you, but don't take my word for it. Talk to the people that I've helped.
here are my references.
And then you decide.
And then you decide.
And usually these people I do work with shoulder to shoulder, so they see how I work.
Would you help this person who's going to be a dentist, wants to open up his office, do it as a partnership, and bring in DSO as well? Okay.
Because I need their support system to do what I'll focus on the people, they can focus on the back end.
Gotcha. Bro, I hope you open 20, 30 offices.
I'll take whatever God's willing to give me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stop because he's given me the capacity to do it, but I'm not gonna kill myself over it either.
One question I do have for you, because you briefly touched on it right now. If I ask someone how important has God played in your growth in your business, most of them would say I can't think of more than enough. Like he's had a big part. But if you were to look at it objectively, right? I'm sure there's times where you're like, hey, God, like, am I about to go through misery right now? Is this all going to end? Is this all going to go into shambles? Like, when I ask you, like, how has God played a role in this? Like, have you learned anything that you can pretty much teach it someone else, like the importance of having God in this role?
So, yes, 100%. Without him, I couldn't be where I am.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The one thing I've also learned through other people that are successful in business is a certain level of humility and humbleness. So when I get cocky, that's when things seem to hit the fan.
How do you know that, though? Well, can we be clear, like the difference between cocky and confidence?
I'm always confident.
Okay.
I'm always confident. When I get cocky and I know that level, I know when I'm cocky, I have to tell myself, or God bless my wife, she's like, you need to get down your high horse now. Because that's when things go wrong.
Okay.
So you always have to have that level of humility and being humble, as well as staying hungry to keep going. Because business is never linear. It never grows exponentially. It goes in waves. You're hoping that wave just goes higher and higher and higher. So you're going to have high points, you're going to have low points. You're just hoping to go higher next time. So that level of just being humble goes far.
So one of my favorite questions that I like to ask everyone, especially when they have kids, is like, what lessons do you hope to pass on to your kids to teach them about success?
Work ethic is everything. Things are not going to come easy. If you want it, work for it.
But to be fair, you've made their life easier.
They are living better than I did growing up.
Right.
I will not deny that. But they also know Dad wakes up at 5:30. They see me early morning working out. They see me getting ready before they do. They see me doing things in a certain way to get ahead of things. They see me when I come home. They see me how I engage with them. They see me how I work. And they've actually been with me at the office and they see how I work. They're like, Dad's doing a lot. So the fact that they're starting to recognize like, oh, Dad doesn't go play. Dad's actually doing stuff. it's a mind shift.
But do you think that's taught them work ethic, or do you
It
think
has, because so one thing before, and like growing up, parents are like, you have to have straight A's, you have to do this, you have to. I told them, I need to see effort. So long as I see effort, I don't care what grades you get. And they hold themselves accountable now.
Interesting.
Perfect example today, my middle one had a test. She missed 2 out of 19. And I'm like, sweetheart, you did pretty well. She's like, Dad, I could have done better. I said, what makes you say that? She's like, well, I looked at where I went wrong, and I know what I did wrong. I know not to do it again. On her own accord.
Whoa.
So I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right.
How old is your kid?
7.
Saying that?
Mm-hmm. She's also a girl, so they're a little bit more stout. Nothing against boys, but...
Girls are a little crazy, man. My kid is like... Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But they have it's built in. They're getting it. So we're not pushing it. We want them to understand. And like something they know that they can't say I can't. Mm-hmm. They have to say I'm trying. Mm-hmm. I've tried everything and it still can't go to where I want it to be. Like if someone in my house says I can't, that's when I get upset.
I keep saying last question, but I always want to ask you more questions.
This is
like,
great.
What do you think is the recipe for someone to be, if like you had to narrow it to 3 things, mm-hmm. whether it's being in dentistry, whether it's being, opening up your own medicine practice or pharmacy or any kind of business, mm-hmm. restaurant, whatever mm-hmm. it is, mm-hmm. what do you think is the key recipes, or at least the 3 key recipes for someone to be successful in any industry that they do?
You have to have a certain mentality and a certain grit, number 1. Number 2, you have to have a certain level of discipline, and you have to have a game plan. If you hold on to those 3, you'll be fine.
But someone could say, like, no matter what game plan you put together, like, shit's going to hit the ceiling, and you're just going to have to adjust.
You have to course correct at times, absolutely. But if you have the mentality, you have a strong mentality, you have the grit next to that mentality, and things are not going the way they should, you course correct accordingly, you keep it going. You hold a level of discipline. There's a level of being objective to be successful, but there's also the humility of knowing when to throw in the towel. And that's okay too.
How do you know that though?
You don't. You just don't. I'm a big proprietor of feeling what's in your gut. What your gut tells you, I've learned to trust my gut over the years. I used to ignore it all the time, and I wish I never did. Really? You just know. You just know this is not going to work. Then you course correct, you pivot, you shut down, you do what you have to make it work.
Yeah, but someone like you,
mm-hmm.
for example, mm-hmm. I could see the business totally going wrong, mm-hmm. right? And I can totally see you saying, I'm going to weather the storm. Mm-hmm. I can't picture you saying, hey guys, I think it's time we close shop. I think you would have a hard time doing that.
I would. I very much would. But I have to tell myself and be honest with myself, I've done everything I could. If I can answer that, I've done everything I could and I'm still in the state of business, I would throw in the towel. And let's put it this way, I have yet to say I've done everything I could.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Doctor,
Thanks for having me, Timmy.
For those who want to reach you, right? How can they reach you?
Best way, you can DM me on OC Tooth Doctor. That's OCTOOTHDR on Instagram. It's the best way to get a hold of me.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Likewise.
Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you guys learned something. We're on the outro.